Hello, how are you, my YT family? This is Kendra D, and I'm coming to you with a video that was long promised. Said I would do a video like this maybe a couple weeks ago, and it took a little bit of research, and then it actually took me to sit down and actually make the time to put it together, first of all, in my head. And this video is pretty much going to be about the correlation between child support and single motherhood, mainly. Although there are several offshoots of this topic, which it may lead into other videos. But I'll cross those bridges if and when I get to them. But I'm gonna read something, and this comes from, and I'm gonna put the link to this webpage in the description box. This actually comes from the state of Illinois, the DHS state of Illinois website. And I'm not going to read the entire thing because it gets really technical, but I'm going to read what I believe is the most important part to this. And then we may be able to understand the hand of the state or the hand of the government in the epidemic of single motherhood, specifically in the Black community, because I'm not concerned with any other community, as it were. All right, so this article on the dhs.state.illinois.us website is child support enforcement and the cooperation requirement. Okay, a summary of it is clarifies who must cooperate with child support enforcement activities, requires reconciliation for both TANF and medical clients before a sanction. Income is the basis for determining who cooperates with child support activity for medical programs under the Family Health Plan. Now, who must cooperate? And I'm going to skip around this article. Child support cooperation requirements apply to a custodial parent who receives cash, medical, TANF, family assist, parent kid care assist, or kid care moms and babies. This includes a minor custodial parent or a step parent who is included in the case with a legal parent. A custodial parent who does not receive any benefit for themselves is not required to cooperate. This means that a custodial parent who is with a child-only case does not have to cooperate with child support requirements. The state would continue to offer services to only medical cases that are currently active as long as the cooperation requirements are met. They close the case if the person fails to cooperate. After a case closes, a person who later decides they want the services completes the child support application process. Okay, a custodial parent who is receiving TANF, cash case, or medical case for a child and receives assistance in a separate case for themselves is still required to cooperate with child support enforcement. And they give a couple of examples and tell me if any of this is familiar. Example number 1, Miss R has 3 children and was not married to any of the 3 fathers. Paternity has not been established for any of the children. Miss R receives TANF in the same case as her children. She is required to cooperate with child support enforcement. This is a case where there has been no established paternity. Example 2, Miss T is a 17-year-old mother and her baby live alone and receive TANF. Miss T is a minor parent who is required to cooperate with child support enforcement. Example number 3, the TANF case consists of Mr. B, which is the payee, Mrs. B, Mrs. B's son John, and Mr. and Mrs. B's son Jim. Mr. B is a step parent who is required to cooperate for John. So this is when a step parent has to also cooperate in filing for child support. The fourth example, Miss Z receives TANF for herself. She has a case for her son who receives medical. Miss Z is required to cooperate with child support requirements. Example number 5, Miss P receives medical assistance in a separate case from her child. Her child receives SSI and a medical card. Miss P must cooperate with child support enforcement. Example number 6, Miss T receives TANF for her 10-year-old daughter for whom she is the responsible parent. Miss T receives SSI and a medical card. She is required to cooperate with child support enforcement. Example number 7, and there are 8, so we're almost done. The TANF case consists of Miss A. Miss A's 17-year-old son Joe, 16-year-old daughter Jean, and Jean's daughter April. Miss A is required to cooperate for her son Joe and her daughter Jean. Okay. Also, Jean, who was a minor parent in this example, is also required to cooperate for her daughter April. Apply a penalty for the non-cooperation for the TANF case when Miss A or Jean do not cooperate with child support enforcement activities. In addition, the non-cooperating person is ineligible for medical benefits until they cooperate, unless they are pregnant, and that is key. And the last example, Miss R, a 17-year-old minor mother, and her 5-year-old daughter receive medical assistance in the same case. Miss R is required to cooperate with child support. Okay. So, this article actually goes on to say that pregnant women are the exception for not stopping medical assistance. So basically, in these examples, what is being said is if you are applying for benefits and you want to apply for yourself, the parent, as well as the children, whether those cases are considered together or separate, you are required by state law to file for child support enforcement or cooperate with the state to enforce child support on whomever. Why is that important? First, before we get into why that's actually important, we have known for a while that the state incentivizes certain behavior. Okay. And this certain behavior from women has given rise to the uptick in single motherhood that we witness in the Black community. And this is happening in other communities as well. I don't want it to seem like this is exclusive to the Black community, because it is not. It does happen in other communities. I'm just not concerned about that. I'm concerned about the Black community only at this point. So we understand that certain behavior has been incentivized, but I don't think a lot of us understand how the incentive works, because the incentive here isn't that you get to live in the lap of luxury. It isn't any of these things. It's coming as a consequence of having a need. Okay? Now, how do we get multiple children off of a single mom with different fathers? There are a couple of reasons why that happens, but the one reason that I want to point out in connection with what I read to you is the fact that the mother, if she does not want to cooperate with child support enforcement, she cannot receive any state medical assistance. None whatsoever. Okay? The state will not give her a medical card. They'll give it to the kid, but they won't give it to her. Okay? So that means she can't get any checkups. She can't get anything that she can't pay completely 100% out of pocket for. Now, what's the problem with that? We live in America. That problem should already be evident because the medical system is expensive. So a basic checkup can cost you hundreds of dollars, not counting blood work, sending things to the lab, all of these separate costs. So getting any type of medical service without any sort of insurance, whether that insurance comes by state or if you pay privately for your medical insurance, you are going to be paying out of the nose. Now, if we have someone, a mother, or who let's say she only has one child, and she works, but this isn't the best job. Sometimes your work does not really cover much. Even though we are under the Affordable Care Act, which would require businesses to provide some sort of medical benefit to you, even if it's really, really minimal. A lot of times there's a large copay. And there's also, it takes a lot out of your check. If your employer is the one who is providing the medical insurance due to the Affordable Care Act mandates, your check looks stupid, okay? Because that's coming out, and also federal taxes are coming out, and also state taxes are coming out. So if you're not making that much anyway, your check is barely enough to sustain you, okay? Now, so we have, in my example, we have a single mother with one child who has some work, but it's minimum wage work. After all of these taxes and what have you have been taken out, it's barely enough to support her and her child, which that is real. So you go to receive some type of benefit, because if you can get food stamps to alleviate the food expense, you might actually be able to make your ends meet. Okay? So she goes down to the public aid office, to the DHS office, and she applies for SNAP or TANF. Okay? In that application, though, is a little section that requires you to cooperate with child support enforcement. Now, let's say this lady knows who the father is, but she had no real intent on putting him on child support. Okay? If she wants those stamps and like maybe a medical card, so that can alleviate, you know what I'm saying, all of what's being taken out of her paycheck, she's going to have to put that guy on child support. She's going to have to. Or she gets nothing. And they don't mind turning you away. They don't care. You get nothing, or you cooperate, or you get nothing. Okay? And a lot of times, people are in a rock and a hard place. Okay? So they decide, let me just go ahead and do this. If there was a working, functional relationship between the mother and the father, that's going to be shot to hell. Because if it's one thing that guys don't like, it's being put on child support and getting a little notice in the mail about them suddenly now having to get on child support. And if he is also in a low wage job, this is going to be devastating. Okay? Now, why does the state do this? Well, before I get into why the state does this, let me go back to my example. Because let's say she doesn't want to cooperate with the child support thing. There is one way for her to get some medical assistance without doing that. And that is to be pregnant. Because according to the website in the state of Illinois, they cannot stop medical assistance for pregnant women who do not cooperate with child support. And it reads as the following: medical benefits continue when a pregnant woman on a 10th case fails to cooperate, okay, if she is pregnant. Do not take action to stop medical benefits. When a pregnant woman with children on TANF refuses to cooperate, swap the case to medical for the children and delete the pregnant woman. Approve a separate Kid Care Moms Babies case for the pregnant woman. Okay? Approve a Kid Care Moms and Babies case for the non-cooperating pregnant woman who receives cash and medical and is responsible for a child or children that receive benefits in a separate case. Okay? So, if I want benefits, I do not want to put my child's father on child support, but I also need at least some medical benefits. What am I going to do? The loophole, as it were, is for me to do what? Become pregnant again. Okay? Are you starting to see the trap that's being formed? Okay? I get pregnant again. Now, if I'm still dealing with my baby's father, I probably have sex with him and get pregnant by him again. If I'm not really dealing with him like that, I'll probably find some other guy and I get pregnant by him. Okay? Now, from that, you should be able to leapfrog to the next point. And I'll leave you to that. But why does the state create this? Why do they want you to do the child support thing? And why is that a loophole? Well, child support, when men, or in some cases women, pay into the child support system, that money does not go to the child. A large percentage of that money goes back into the state's coffers. Okay? It's a supplemental program. It's a revenue program for the state. Okay? These women are not getting that much money, which is why they still struggle, even though they appear to be getting child support in regular payments and increments. Because if he's paying, let's say a guy's paying $400 a month. That's just a ballpark figure, whatever. He's a regular Joe Schmo guy. He's paying $400 a month. She's probably getting about 175 of that money. Maybe she's getting 200, but that's too close to 50%. Okay? So she's still going to be looking at it like, okay, this isn't enough to actually do anything, although he has coughed up $400. She is not actually receiving $400 because the greedy little middleman is the state, who's eating it all and then spitting out bones to her. Okay? Now, why is the loophole pregnancy? Well, to produce more revenue for the state. Okay? They don't mind giving you that little bit of assistance for those 9 months because in the end, they're going to get more out of it. Because as you continue to birth out of wedlock children, the chances are extremely high that you're going to be coming back to the state. And as you become overwhelmed with your poverty, you're going to, I don't care if you refuse it at first, you're now going to put those fathers on child support, okay? So that you can receive benefits as well, okay? In order to actually make ends meet, or try to. This is the trap. This is the trap that has been modified from the late 50s and early 60s to the 21st century. Because remember, and I'll take you back, when it was covered, and I believe my esteemed brother BGS covered it very well, to talk about how in the late 50s and 60s, the government created a standard where there could be no men in the house for a woman and children to receive state benefits. And this effectively removed men from the household. But just like then, something preceded that. What would make a family so destitute that the man would need to leave the home in order for his wife and children to eat? Well, economic drought. Job market looks like tumbleweeds blow through it every day. Dry it up, okay? Dry up the job market targeted at black men, okay? So that they cannot find enough gainful employment to support themselves and the families. And this is the case even with two income households. But if these are two low income households, they're still going to have a problem. Okay? So just like then, now what precedes this? What has preceded this? The job market drying up. Black men unable to find gainful employment. The job market opened for women, but now that's even drying up. You see? So as women who probably before did not even consider it, now must consider it. And what happens to the men who either refuse to or are simply unable to pay this child support? Why? They go to debtor's prison, which should be illegal in the United States, by the way, but that's only illegal on paper, legal in practice, however, because we know that black men are sentenced to jail time all the time for late child support payments, back child support payments, not enough child support payments. He was unable to work, so he couldn't pay the child support payments, on and on, etc., etc. Right? So by now, because I assume my subscribers to be intelligent, you should be able to come to a decision and a conclusion about what I am saying. How do we get a lot of single mothers, and the role that the government actually plays in order to see this out and to see this through? Okay? It's a revenue, because sending the men to prison is also a revenue, because the prisons are privatized. It's debtor's prison. And then it also effectively helps the men not return to the home even if he wanted to. Okay? The trickle-down effect is the disruption of the relationship between black men and black women, because black men feel now victimized by his woman who is complicit in the state monetarily and financially raping him, and also in many cases stripping him of his rights as a parent, his rights as a father. doesn't have visitation rights. He has to fight for and scrap for every piece. He has to, fight her, fight the state, and do a lot of fighting before he can get any sort of real opportunity to parent his child. And this goes for men who, this is a lot of times men who wanted the child in the first place, or they accepted it after the fact. Like they didn't feel as though they should abandon the child. So the narrative, see, this is a multi-pronged attack because the women are then fed a narrative. And that narrative comes from white feminist culture and ideas that black men do not want to take care of their children. That is the narrative in media. See, that's the subversion. Remember, we talked about subversion and the use of propaganda in order to achieve this goal. So, the propaganda is movies, music, television that portray black fathers in usually a negative light, where they do not want to take care of their children. They do not want to be a family. They do not want the women. They don't want families, which is patently untrue. This is not true. But women are easily subverted, especially when it concerns our reproduction and our children. Okay? So now, since that subversion has been well put in place, she's working, whether that's consciously or subconsciously, she is working on that narrative. Okay? That is informing her decisions. Okay? And also, the economic circumstances, the poverty that we find ourselves in, force our hands a lot of times. Okay? So this becomes almost a hustle for women because the poverty has forced her hand, in the same sense that the poverty forces the hand of the black man to sell drugs, to engage in criminal activity, in order to do what? Eat, to make money. Is it harmful to the community ultimately? Yes. Are having a bunch of children out of wedlock, single motherhood, being complicit with the state, is that harmful to the community? Yes. But why is she doing it? To eat, most of the time. Okay? So this is a multi-pronged attack upon the black community. It only changes faces a little bit, but the process is the same. Okay? In fact, the move to remove fathers from the home in the 50s and 60s so that women can get these benefits actually gave rise to the upturn in single motherhood, coupled with what was happening in the 60s, second wave feminism. Okay, we can't leave out feminism because this is the programming that the women were under and are still under. So we have to understand the programming of the mind. Okay, this is the subversion that has happened. Okay, so she's working on programming. Okay, this is automated. This isn't even something that she's always doing consciously. This is a subconscious automation. Okay, it's slick. It's really, really slick, and it's really damaging. Okay, almost to the point where a lot of times you think, can it be repaired? Can it be repaired? But before it can be repaired, the programming has to be broken. The programming of the mind, the subversion, has to be dismantled. Okay? And we cannot dismantle subversion without organization. Okay? Right. This may give rise to some other videos, because there is an individual who showed up a couple of times on BGS for Women. She never joined the panel, but she was saying that she works in family court and that the child support goes to the child mostly, and this is not true. Okay, this is a system. This is basically the state's racketeering. This is a racket. Okay, this is racketeering. This is all that this is a state-run racket, and we're being thrown into the meat grinder, whether we want to be or not. So I'm gonna need everyone to come to these understandings so that we can stop necessarily pointing the finger at one another. And that doesn't mean that there is no work that needs to be done between us. However, we have to get to a point where we understand who the puppet master is and where the strings are attached. Okay? All right. Signing off.